Welcome back, YouTube. Today I'm going to show you how GM and Ford grew last quarter by actually shrinking. I'm Nasco, this is the Great Reset. Let's get going. So, if you've seen any numbers coming out in the last few days on how the sales were for all car manufacturers in the first quarter of 2021, you would think that everything is going great with American car manufacturers. Now, Tesla obviously did really good, but I'm gonna leave them for last. I wanna talk about Ford and GM first. If you read the headlines, GM grew their sales by 4%. Ford grew by 1%. Posting strong numbers is what CNBC said. Well, let's actually look at what actually happened. But we're not gonna look at 2021 versus 2020 because the first quarter of 2020, at the middle of March, is when the pandemic hit and everything froze. So we're gonna go back and look at our regular economy of 2019 versus our new reset economy of 2021. We're gonna see and compare how our American manufacturers, forward-looking and heavily investing manufacturers, are growing in our new post-pandemic era. Let's get going. So, let's start with Ford. So, in 2019, Ford had US sales of 590,000 vehicles. And then, Ford had 521 vehicles in 2021. Where is that strong number? So you go from almost 600,000 to barely over 500,000. But if you read CNBC, they'll have you thinking that Ford is doing really good. They're posting strong numbers, even though they shrunk by 70,000 vehicles. Let's give GM some credit. Maybe they did something amazing. So GM sold 642,000 vehicles in the US in the first 3 months of this year. What did they do in 2019? They sold 665. So we have 665 versus 642. Granted, they shrunk less, but they still shrunk a lot. Now, people will say chip shortages. Well, there were chip shortages for everybody. Everybody had to deal with it. Some companies dealt with it better than others. Maybe they have their own secure channel for chips. Maybe they make their own chips. It doesn't matter. The problem is chip shortages and how you deal with it. Let's see how Tesla did. 2019, 63,000 vehicles. 2021, 184,000 vehicles. So Tesla grew roughly 3 times in 2 years. In years where pandemic hit, chip shortages hit, they had to spend money on factories and whatnot, and they grew 300%. GM and Ford both shrunk. I'm not gonna pull up the numbers for Chrysler, but I guarantee you they're very similar to what we're seeing here for GM and Ford, because that's not what's important. What's important is this trend is not really showing exactly what's going on. Let me explain why. Tesla is not really a big competitor for Ford and GM yet. However, by the end of this year, it will be. So, Tesla competes in 2 main markets. Sedans, basically a market that everybody else is shrinking in by big double-digit numbers, and SUVs where everybody is growing. Tesla, Ford, GM, everybody is happy with SUVs. One other market where GM and Ford make most of their money in is in pickup trucks. Ford F-150, Chevy Silverado. Now, do you think that when the Cybertruck gets here by the end of this year and combine it with the Rivian pickup truck, Ford and GM are gonna keep posting strong growth numbers as CNBC says it? You think they will be able to compete, especially with the Cybertruck, which will be lower cost of everything, lower cost to buy, lower cost to operate, lower cost to self-drive, lower cost everything, lower cost to maintain. If you hit a tree branch or anything with it, you don't have to worry about it. You just wash it like you wash your stainless steel fridge. Nothing more than that. You don't have to repaint it. You don't have to do anything about it. So Ford has announced a Ford F-150 electric. Well, let's see what is this going to look like and cost. It's going to look like a regular Ford F-150 as far as we know. But first things first, they delayed it until the first quarter of 2022. Ford is estimated to sell this pickup truck for starting at $70,000. And you know what they say what they mean when they say starting. You're not getting out the door with less than $85,000. We don't know the range. We know it's coming at the earliest in the first quarter of 2022. And judging by the production numbers that they're doing for the Ford Mustang Mach-E, they're not going to be very big. They're going to be kind of like in the minimal side. Chevy or GM has announced the electric Hummer starting at $130,000, and the cheaper versions coming all the way down in 2024. Basically, I'm not even counting that as an attempt from GM to do anything when it comes to electric pickup trucks. So we have one company kicking ass in sedans and SUVs, growing 300% in 2 years, in 2 pandemic years, while we have 2 ancient car manufacturers, GM and Ford, shrinking in that time, even though the media would have you believe that they've posted strong growth numbers. And that's without the guy growing 3 times, competing their bread and butter territory. And that guy is coming this year, competing in their bread and butter territory, pickup trucks, with something very uniquely looking, with a really big price gap. I mean, the Cybertruck starts at $40,000. And they'll say it's not a lot of range. Well, maybe, maybe not. If you're somebody who has a little construction business that you need to load it up in the morning, drive to a job site, your job and go back home, you don't really need more than 250 miles of range. That's plenty enough. A lot of pickup trucks are used for hauling stuff short distances, and that's it. So why do you need to worry about a lot of range? Now, if you drive a lot, they have a $70,000 version that gives you over 500,000 miles, but it starts at 40 with 6 seats, with a covered bed, with all the utilities that you need in a pickup truck, self-driving, everything, low cost of maintenance, low cost of operation, and you're going out against guys who don't have any offering in 21 for electric pickup trucks. You're going out against guys that will start at $70,000. Then you have to go find the $70,000 version, deal with the dealer markups, which are just a notorious thing to start with. Hope they have enough quantity of batteries to make as many as they need just so they can sustain their level of production. This is not happening. This year, 2021, will be the last year where you actually see positive things said about Ford and GM from the mainstream media. And once this happens, then you see stock prices start going down. You see union issues when they start closing down factories. You see issues with local state authorities where they don't meet their obligations to get their tax breaks. You see issues with customer service because dealers, they don't sell trucks, they don't get enough return customers for service, so the quality of service will go down. You will see people being confused. Why can't they just order their truck online and just get it delivered to them, or go and pick it up from some location instead of having to deal with some sleazy guy trying to sell them a truck with a dealer markup? It's going to start getting worse and worse for those companies. So when you read in the news that GM and Ford are going to be those big EV giants, think about what has to happen first. First, they have to get at the speed of Tesla, manufacturing-wise, innovation-wise. Then they have to compete on range and cost of batteries. Then they have to compete on sales. I'm not talking about full self-driving here. I'm just talking about the product. Then they have to compete with sales. Then they have to compete with quality. And then they have to deal with dealer markups. And all while this is happening, because they were sleeping until now, the Cybertruck is just going to keep on selling and converting people from the old to the new. And people are going to start expecting the new electric trucks from GM and Ford to have the same look as the Cybertruck. What are we talking about here? This is years from now, if they still exist. And likely, they won't, at least not in the form that we know them today. There might be a GM that went through another bankruptcy that comes out clean without debts. There might be a new Ford that goes through bankruptcy that comes out without debts. But they're not going to be the companies you know today. Completely new management, everything new, a whole bunch of factories shut down, problems with the unions, shutting down factories in the United States, outside the United States, just everywhere. So, when you see news like this, General Motors retail sales up 19% in Q1, actually look behind the curtain. You can have a pile of shit with a rose on top of it, and this is what GM pulled out. But it's still a pile of shit. Well, hopefully I connected some dots for you. My name is Nasco. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.